Ik ben Hans Lambeau, hoofdredacteur Database Magazine. Voor dit interview op BI-platform is onze gast Mark Madsen. Mark studeerde onder meer aan de University of Carnegie Mellon en is gespecialiseerd in data-integratie. Althans, dat dacht ik tot op nu. You're not really specialized in data integration, are you?
Well, I do both data integration and I also do a lot of BI work.
Yeah. And you told me something about the web work you do. What kind of work is that?
Yeah. With the web markets, I worked at web startups for a lot of years, so I have a background in doing websites and web development. Mm-hmm. And what I'm finding is that a lot of e-commerce companies and just regular businesses are needing to deliver information through the web, or they are trying to publish or consume information online. And that's bringing a lot of web technology to the data warehousing market. And there's a big gap in tools and in knowledge in the data warehouse market about how to deal with the web. So I'm doing a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. So it's still BI.
Still BI focused.
Yes. Yeah. Can you tell me, Mark, what's new in data integration?
What's new in data integration?
We got Informatica, do we? So what else do we need?
Well, Informatica is good for some things, but what we're seeing in data integration is the kind of service-oriented architecture market, which has been dominated by companies like IBM and BEA, which is now part of Oracle, and open source tools, which unfortunately is old-style architecture. It's very heavy. It was based on things, the transaction monitors of the past. And if you look at the web market and how the web market does service integration, much simpler, much lighter technologies, not using a lot of the standards being pushed by the big vendors. And so one of the new aspects of integration and data integration is the web service market being driven by internet companies. Mm-hmm. Other technologies or things happening within the data integration market are things like semantic and content-based integration and model-based integration.
What can we expect from ETL? Is that old-fashioned, the way we do it now?
Is ETL old-fashioned? I don't think the batch integration will ever go away completely because we have so many systems that we have to tie together and the timing of those systems. But I do think that that will become much less of a factor than real-time or near real-time data integration and being able to bring data from sources together as transactions occur. Because we're consuming data faster, we need to be alerted to problems more quickly. And it may be that the batch integration feeds a specific analytic purpose on one side, but I think real-time and very low latency data is the key to future integration.
Are there any tools right now on the market that already can cope with this kind of integration stuff as you just sketched?
Yeah, there are tools. The tools from the big vendors, they now offer real-time versions of the tools, which work to varying degrees. Mm-hmm. The problem is that the architectures for these tools were built around a central engine that processed and was designed to process very large volumes of data very quickly. Mm-hmm. And what we have is lower volumes of data, but much higher concurrency, and so much higher transaction overhead, almost like the transaction monitors of old. And that drives a very different tool architecture. So we have that, and there's more manual coding involved.
You told me yesterday there's a little trouble in the ETL market. It's caused by a Canadian company who is suing almost every ETL vendor in the world. Is that true?
Yes, there's a patent troll. I don't remember the name of the parent company,
Mm-hmm.
but Juxtacom is the company they acquired that made an ETL package in the 90s. And they actually post-date other ETL vendors, but they have a very broad and generic patent claim, and they're suing, at the moment, as I know of, 17 companies in the market.
That includes
everybody.
even Oracle and...
Yeah.
Okay. And we already had some trouble between Business Objects and Informatica with the claim of, I thought it was $40 million. Do you know what happened to that claim?
I don't know what happened to it. I know that under U.S. law with the triple damages, I believe that number is actually over 100 million. But I thought they appealed it and it was going back to court. Since SAP took over, I have no idea.
The other thing you're quite well known in the BI market for is being a startup watcher. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I found is that traditional analyst firms, the Gartner or Forrester, these types of companies, focus on the well-capitalized middle portion of the market. You know, that's where the big vendors are, that's what the big IT shops are interested in. But the interesting things tend to happen not at big vendors, but at the edges of the market where the innovation is really happening. And so for BI, for data integration, for just about everything, the startups are where the fun stuff is. And most of the big companies can't make any money focusing on that. And so it's a great place for me to focus my attention and keep current.
Yeah, you keep records of these companies?
Yeah, I do briefings, I go to visit the companies, so I keep a lot of notes.
Mm-hmm. Is there one particular startup right now that you would give extra attention?
One startup, boy, if I had to choose one, there's one that I've actually been working with, so maybe there's some self-interest involved, called LizaSoft.
LizaSoft.
Yeah, and what they're focusing on is in the BI market, a part of the market that has been really ignored. The traditional BI vendors are focused on reporting tools. Just basic, here's a report, publish a report, deliver reports. And the people left out of this are analysts. Mm-hmm. The people who really have to think about numbers, solve problems, where you don't have 100% of the data. You can't just build a report to answer your question. You have to look at data, refine it, narrow it down, bring some external information in, model it, transform some of the data. Most of this work's done in Excel and Microsoft Access, and this is why people are using Excel all the time for BI. It's the analysts who have to bring data from many places and assemble it and model it in some sort of a model for their understanding. And LizaSoft is one of maybe 2 or 3 companies right now focused on tools that bring together a level of data consumption and integration or manipulation with the transformation and building a model so that you can assemble the information and then look at the data so that you can analyze it more quickly without using 6 different tools to do it.
Tomorrow you will do a seminar completely focused on data integration. Can you give me in just a few lines what you're going to tell the people?
Sure. This is sort of a technology-focused presentation. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just give a very broad horizontal view of the market because there are so many data integration technologies, and usually people are familiar with half of what's out there. Mm-hmm. So ETL tools, profiling and quality, and federation and SOA and all of these things. And then a deeper dive into ETL tools and features for evaluating them and the categories of feature sets. Mm-hmm. To give people a better understanding of where the vendors are going and how they should evaluate those products. And then the rest of the session is some future elements. So moving away from ETL into real-time integration, since the batch ETL tools aren't necessarily the complete answer there, and how that affects warehouse architectures. And that leads us to web integration. None of the ETL vendors do data integration off of web. So scraping information from websites, consuming web services that are government or public web services, which then feeds into text. You pull data off of websites, most often it's text. And then you have to process that text in order to get it into the warehouse. So that's the collection of technologies that I'll look at in more detail as what I would say are newer integration technologies.
Thanks for being our guest, Mark, today. Mark Madsen heeft een eigen channel op BI Network. Daar kunt u nog veel meer van hem lezen.